Have you ever, like, wanted to really get something, a really fundamental biological process, like something that makes all life possible, but then you think about all the textbooks and, like, dense scientific papers, and it's just so overwhelming.
Yeah, it can be a lot.
Yeah. So today we're taking a deep dive into one of those fundamental processes, respiration.
Ah, respiration.
And to guide us on this deep dive, we have it's a grade 8 teacher guide.
And you might think, a grade 8 teacher guide, what could that possibly tell us?
Right, exactly.
But you'd be surprised. It lays out this incredibly clear and simple kind of foundational understanding of respiration, which is really just how life extracts energy.
That's so cool. And even though it's from a teacher's guide, I think there's something in there for everybody, right? Like, these are fundamental principles.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So our goal today is to unpack respiration, see what it is, understand the different ways it works, and then look at how it connects to another big biological process, photosynthesis.
Oh, yeah. Big connection there.
Huge. So, even if you're not in grade 8 anymore, this is going to be relevant to you, trust me.
Yeah, because this is happening inside you right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's jump right in. What exactly is respiration?
Okay, so respiration is the process that all living cells use to break down food molecules to get energy.
So it's how we get the energy from the food we eat.
Exactly, and not just us, like all living organisms.
Okay, so we're talking plants and animals, everything.
Everything. It's kind of like it's happening all the time, all around us. It's one of those things that makes life possible.
Wow. And this is happening inside every single cell in our body.
Right. And the main place where this happens inside the cell is in an organelle called the mitochondrion.
Mitochondrion.
Yeah, you've probably heard of it, the powerhouse of the cell.
Oh, yeah, the powerhouse. Okay, that's ringing a bell.
Yeah, they're like these tiny little energy factories that are working away inside every cell.
So they're breaking down the food to produce energy.
Exactly.
And the teacher's guide gives this chemical equation for respiration. Could you walk us through that?
Sure. So the equation is C6H12O6 plus O2.
Okay, that's glucose and oxygen, right?
Exactly. Glucose is that simple sugar, the fuel.
Right.
And then oxygen, we all know what oxygen is.
Right.
So those two react together
Yeah.
to produce CO2, which is carbon dioxide, H2O, which is water, and then, importantly, energy.
So that's the energy that the cell can use.
Exactly. And the way I like to think about it is, the glucose molecule, it's full of these little bonds, right? Like little springs that are holding stored energy.
Okay.
And oxygen comes along and helps to kind of break those springs. And when those springs break, that's when the energy is released.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
So the cell is taking in glucose and oxygen.
Yep.
And then it releases carbon dioxide, water, and that energy that it needs.
Yeah. It's like controlled dismantling. Taking this glucose molecule and kind of carefully taking it apart and releasing the energy in a way that the cell can use it.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So we're talking about oxygen going in and carbon dioxide coming out. So those are the main gases involved in respiration.
Yeah, those are the key players. Oxygen's the one that's absorbed and used in this process. And carbon dioxide, that's the waste product. That's what gets released.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the guide also talks about these two types of respiration, aerobic and anaerobic.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
The key difference is oxygen. Aerobic respiration, you need oxygen for that to happen.
Okay.
And that's the one that's, really efficient. You get a lot of energy out of that process.
That's what we're doing most of the time.
Most of the time.
Right.
But then you have anaerobic respiration. And that's what happens when there's not enough oxygen around.
So when you're working out really hard.
Exactly. Your muscles start to burn. And that's because they're switching over to anaerobic respiration. And you don't get as much energy from that. And you get these byproducts like lactic acid.
Oh, right, lactic acid.
Yeah, that's the stuff that makes your muscles sore.
Okay. So aerobic, that's like the high-powered engine. And anaerobic, that's like the backup generator.
Yeah, like the emergency generator that kicks in when the power goes out.
Yeah.
But it's not as efficient, and it has these side effects.
Yeah. And then the guide goes on to talk about this thing that looks like the reverse of the respiration equation.
Yeah, it's like they flipped the whole thing around.
Totally. What's going on there?
So that flipped equation, that's the equation for photosynthesis.
Photosynthesis.
Yes, that's what plants do.
Right.
And it's basically the opposite of respiration. So instead of breaking down glucose to release energy, they're using energy to build glucose.
Oh, wow. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. They use carbon dioxide, they use water, and they use energy from the sun.
Sunlight.
Yeah, and they take those ingredients and they make glucose, which is their food.
It's like they're making their own fuel.
Totally. And as a byproduct, they release oxygen.
Oh, right. So the oxygen that we breathe comes from plants?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Every breath you take, you can thank a plant for that.
That is so cool.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
So respiration breaks down glucose to get energy, and photosynthesis builds it up using energy.
Precisely. Two sides of the same coin.
Wow. And even the gas exchange is reversed, right?
Yeah. Respiration takes in oxygen, releases carbon dioxide. Photosynthesis takes in carbon dioxide, releases oxygen.
It's like a perfect cycle.
It is. They're literally using each other's waste products.
That is amazing. And these processes, like, where are they happening inside the plant cell?
Okay, so respiration, same
Yeah.
as in animal cells, that happens in the mitochondrion,
The powerhouse.
the powerhouse. But photosynthesis, that happens in a different organelle called the chloroplast.
The chloroplast.
Yeah, and that's where all the chlorophyll is.
Sure.
That's what gives plants their green color.
Oh, right, chlorophyll.
And that's where they capture the sunlight.
Okay, so different locations, different inputs, and different outputs.
Exactly.
Respiration gives you carbon dioxide, water, and energy.
Yep.
Photosynthesis gives you glucose and oxygen.
That's it.
Wow.
And you start to see how everything's connected, right?
Right.
Like plants are producing the oxygen that we need to breathe, and we're producing the carbon dioxide that they need to do photosynthesis.
Mhm.
It's this amazing, web of life.
Yeah. Okay, let's go back to respiration for a sec. The guide talks about how important it is for survival,
Uh-huh.
but why? Why is it so essential?
Okay, so think about all the things that your body does, right? Like you're growing, you're repairing tissues, you're moving around, your heart's beating, your brain's thinking. All those things take energy,
Lots of energy.
tons of energy. And that energy comes from respiration. It's literally the fuel that powers all of these processes.
So without respiration, our cells would just stop working.
Basically, yeah, they
Yeah.
wouldn't have the energy to do anything. And that
Yes.
would be, that would be it.
No respiration, no life.
Exactly.
Okay. And we talked about how respiration and photosynthesis are connected. The guide calls it a complementary relationship.
Right, they work together.
So how does that work exactly?
So basically, the products of one process are the ingredients for the other.
Ah.
So photosynthesis makes glucose and oxygen, and those are what respiration needs.
Right.
And then respiration makes carbon dioxide and water, and those are what photosynthesis needs.
So it's a perfect cycle.
Totally. It's like this constant flow of energy and materials back and forth.
That is so cool. Okay, what happens if something disrupts that balance? Like the guide mentions what happens if there's not enough oxygen.
Yeah, if there's less oxygen, then aerobic respiration starts to struggle.
So we can't make as much energy.
Exactly. And in animals, that can lead to fatigue, muscle cramps.
Yeah.
And if it's really bad, like if you're deprived of oxygen for too long, your organs can start to shut down.
It's because they're not getting enough energy.
Exactly. And in plants, if there's not enough oxygen in the soil, their roots can't respire properly. So they can't grow as well. They can't absorb nutrients as well.
Yeah.
It kind of messes everything up.
Wow. So less oxygen is a big
A
problem.
big problem.
Okay, let's take it a step further. What would happen if respiration just stopped completely?
Okay, so if respiration stopped completely,
Yeah.
everything would stop. I mean, everything. It would be catastrophic.
Like everything.
Everything. All the cells in your body would they wouldn't be able to make energy anymore, and so they would die.
Wow.
Yeah. And if enough cells die, then tissues die, and then organs die, and then, well,
Yeah.
it'd be the end.
That's pretty intense.
It is. It really shows you how important respiration is. Like, it's not just some background process. It's literally what keeps us alive.
Yeah. Respiration is life.
It really is.
Okay, so let's recap what we learned about respiration. It's the process that releases energy from food. It happens in the mitochondrion. It uses oxygen to break down glucose, and it produces carbon dioxide, water, and energy. We learned about aerobic and anaerobic respiration. And then we looked at how respiration is connected to photosynthesis, like how they're kind of two sides of the same coin working together to keep everything in balance. And we talked about what happens if that balance gets disrupted, like
Yeah.
if there's not enough oxygen.
Right.
And, well, the dire consequences of no respiration at all.
Yeah, not a good scenario.
So for our final thought today, I want you to consider this. What would happen if this balance between respiration and photosynthesis was disrupted on a global scale? Like, think about climate change, deforestation, pollution.
Yeah.
All these things are affecting the balance of gases in the atmosphere.
Right.
And that could have a huge impact on both respiration and photosynthesis.
It could affect, whole ecosystem.
Exactly. So as we continue to change the planet, it's important to think about how these changes might affect this fundamental balance of life.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's it for today. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into respiration.
Thanks for having me.
It was fascinating.
Yeah, it was.
Until next time.